Hey everyone, I'm Ann. Welcome to the Let's Get Naked podcast, where we dive deep into vulnerability. In this space, we'll explore what triggers us, uncover the patterns holding us back, and discover how to take charge of our own growth. If you're ready to dig in, be vulnerable, and face the tough stuff, then buckle up. It's time to get naked. Let's call out the part we love to tiptoe around. A massive number of men are walking around with unprocessed abuse from childhood. Emotional, physical, psychological, sexual, and they were taught to survive it by going silent, not by healing it. They learned early that pain was something to endure alone, that telling the truth about what happened would either make them weak, disbelieved, or dangerous to the people around them. So instead of processing it, they buried it. And buried pain doesn't disappear, it mutates. Most men didn't choose their patterns, they inherited them. Silence instead of language. Anger instead of vulnerability. Achievement instead of self-worth. Work instead of presence. Control instead of connection. And then we act shocked when grown men don't know how to sit with emotion without either shutting down, blowing up, or disappearing into distraction. We hand boys a rule book that says, be strong, but never explain what strength actually is. We reward them for swallowing pain, not processing it. We tell them to man up, but we never teach them how to feel up. So they grow up thinking love is provision, not presence, that rest is weakness, that asking for help is failure, that emotions are something to dominate, not understand. Here's the part that matters most. Healing abuse isn't about pretending it didn't happen. It's about refusing to pass it forward. It's about learning how to feel anger without becoming it. How to hold pain without handing it to your kids. How to stop reenacting what hurt you just because it's familiar. And the cost of not doing that work? Marriages suffocating under emotional absence. Fathers who love deeply but don't know how to show it. Sons and daughters inheriting coping mechanisms instead of safety. Breaking generational patterns in men is work. Unsexy work. Lonely work, work that often happens quietly, without applause, and sometimes without permission from the people who taught you the pattern in the first place. It looks like stopping mid-reaction and choosing restraint. It looks like learning emotional language as a second language at 40. It looks like deciding that your children will never have to recover from the way you loved them. And here's the wild part. When it works, the next generation often has no idea how much effort went into making their life feel lighter. They just grow up with safety, emotional access, and permission to be human. They don't see the rewiring. They live in the result. So today's conversation isn't about blaming men. It's about honoring the ones who decided the line stops here. The ones who said, I'll be the uncomfortable chapter so my kids can be the healed one. This is what breaking patterns actually looks like, from the man who had to unlearn them and from the kids who get to grow up free enough to not even notice they were ever there. Today, I'm getting vulnerable with my person, husband, partner, and everything, Cameron, and our son, 18, almost 19, Wiley. Today's topic is going to be a little bit rough for me to get through. Maybe for all of you to get through. Maybe not. We'll see.
Kind of feeling that too.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's your rant or riff or monologue was great, and I can't wait to dive into this. I'll let you guide it however you wanted to guide it, but I think there's a lot of goodies here.
I think there are too. And I appreciate you both being willing to be vulnerable enough to have this conversation. I'm looking over at Wiley's eyes. I'm looking over at Wiley's.
Watering. I was like, I didn't know it was going to be like
Yeah,
sad.
he already knows we got bamboozled.
I know. I told him we were coming in to talk about the Super Bowl, and here we are.
Yeah, and here we are. Oh shit.
I know.
Yeah.
You know, for For everyone listening, this is an important topic because, Cameron and I have been working through a lot of his stuff over the last couple of years, and it's something pretty aggressively, I would say, his childhood stuff over the last couple of years. But I think Cameron even worked on this before he even realized he worked on this, because it was something where he knew, I will not pass down to my children the stuff that was handed to me. And I didn't know that until later, and I did pass down stuff to the girls specifically that were terrible patterns that I shouldn't have and didn't know better, and so have really put a lot of energy and effort into fixing. Wiley, for you, your dad has put an enormous amount of effort into really showing you what love looks like, what an example looks like, what emotional intelligence, ever growing, looks like. That's work that he doesn't just do for himself, that he does for you kids. That is, I've never been more in love with your dad in that way, because it's like putting in that work is not easy stuff. It's, like I said, it's unsexy. It's the shit that is on the bathroom floor, screaming, losing your mind, thinking about processing all of the shit that was handed to you, but so that it does stop with us and that we don't pass it on to him. Feels pretty powerful. And so I would love to have your take on that, not just from the stuff that happened, but just the passing it on, right? Because I think if we look at that, we can say that was what was passed on to our parents and their generations before that and their generations before that. And you don't even realize it until you kind of open your eyes and take a step back a little bit. If you're up close to a wall, you see a brick or a color red, and as you back up and as you back up and as you back up, you're getting a different perspective. And so understanding that, our parents did the best that they could with what they had. They were just broken people also, but understanding that I'm not passing down broken to my children. I was telling someone the other day, Wiley and I were having a conversation recently where I was saying, wow, it's been 9 years since I quit drinking, and how wild that is. I feel like I'm a completely different person. I've told you, Cameron, I feel like I've reincarnated in this same life. And Wiley said to me, I don't even remember you drinking. And for me, that was, it humbled me. And so I'm going to ask someone else to talk so I can take a minute.
Yeah, I think I'll probably jump in here.
Please.
I think it's best for me to kind of lay some groundwork here and tell some story or give some background, and then kind of hit the kid with it and let him respond. So kind of see what gets baked into the cake here. So it should be kind of interesting. So there are some of you listeners out there that know a little bit about my story. I would say that the relationship that I had with my dad was shit. It always has been, and it's one of those things where when you're in the middle of it and you're in the trenches, you lose perspective. I say this all the time, and you don't really understand how bad things are, because you're just surviving, right? Just every day is just getting through it and getting through it and getting through it, and you're concentrated on just getting to the next one and just staying alive. And you don't have the luxury, you don't have the time, you don't have the ability to kind of stand back and look and see what it's really like for somebody else, from the outside. You don't know what you're going through because you're just stuck in it. And it was like that for me my entire childhood. I didn't realize that people weren't supposed to get beat up all the time. I didn't realize that people were supposed to get mistreated all the time. I didn't realize that other people's dad didn't disappear for weeks at a time because he was out doing drugs and he just didn't want to be around. And I just thought that life for me was normal. That's what it was. And so as I got older, it was, I had just, I sat on it, I ate it, I pushed it down, I did, all the things that you're not supposed to do, and because that's what you do, right? That's what we're supposed to do. That at some point in time, I'm not a victim. I'm not gonna let those things define who I am, in so much as I am able to affect that, right? And so you just go and you just do and you just be, right? And you understand that I don't want to pass those activities on to my kids, right? And it's easy enough to say, Wiley, I'm not going to beat the shit out of you, And so, But what people don't understand, I think people don't realize in that whole situation is it's not just the abuse. It's not the physical abuse. It's not the emotional abuse. It's not taking advantage of things. That's the easy stuff, you know. That's the low-hanging fruit. It's really easy to say, well, I'm not going to beat up my kids, and then you don't beat up your kids, but you fuck them up just the same because your patterns of behavior are just as bad, right? You haven't addressed any of those issues. You haven't addressed any of those sentiments, any of those behavior patterns that came to you. You still act them. You just happen to stick your hands in your pockets. You know, you don't start swinging, right? But you're passing on the shitty behavior nonetheless, and that's what gets missed in, I think, most people when they talk about this stuff. And it hit me like a ton of bricks a few years ago. You know, maybe 5 years ago, we were up living up north. I had given my dad an opportunity. I didn't realize that he was still the same old piece of shit that he always was. He had become bearable because he had spent like 15 years with daily marijuana use, and so it made him tolerable. Like, he was just stoned all the time, and so it was easy to be around him because he was calm and he was stupid and he wasn't paying attention to anything, and so he was just this jolly old dude that didn't give a shit. And as soon as the doctor told him that he couldn't be on the pot anymore because he was taking so much of it, it was starting to manifest negatively physically, he quit. And then it was, oh shit, he's just back to the same old drug addict that was tearing the world up in his 30s, you know. And so being subjected to that whole situation all over again and having that as just coming back to, it just took me back to when I was your age. You know, I was like, holy shit, this sucks. And I'm looking at you in that same age, and I'm thinking, God, you know, it's night and day difference in the activities that are going on in this relationship between me and my dad and you and, you know, me, your dad. Yeah. And it just made me want to do better. You know, it made me so much to want to do better that I started listening to your mom. Like, you know, yeah. And so since that realization and since that, you know, that refresher that I had of, you know, how bad my dad really was, you know, it led me down a different path, you know, with you to better address those things that get handed down generationally. You know, I had my dad actually said to me, you know, you haven't even told me ever how good a dad I am. and I told him, I said, because that's you don't want to know my answer. And he says, well, I want to know your answer because I'm asking you. And I let him have it. You know, I told him what a piece of shit he was and everything else and blah, 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 blah. And his excuse was, well, that's how it was for me too. And I said, well, you know, Dad, you tell me that like it's a fucking excuse, and it just makes me despise you even more because, you know, here I am breaking the cycle, and you didn't do fuck all to address it, right? It just makes me think less of you by using that as an excuse, you know? And what it did was and I have gratitude for this situation because it made me, it made me want to make sure that this kind of generational trauma stuff stopped with you.
Yeah.
And so, so that's the cake batter. That's what goes into this recipe that that I've been throwing at you. I know it's been a little bit different the past few years as it was before that, but that's kind of that's my motivation there. Yeah. You know, so
I appreciate it.
I hope so.
What does that feel like from your standpoint? Did you notice a shift in your dad a couple of years ago, and just as he's
Like-
been working on himself?
Like, when was the shift? Like, after the ranch, or
No, at the
When we were
ranch.
leaving
So
the
the tail end of us being up there the last year or so.
I don't know. I felt like the biggest shift in kind of like our like family dynamic is just when we first moved up there, just because it was just us three, really. Like Emily and Brittany had been moved out, but I feel like there was kind of a shift. But I didn't really know much at the time because I didn't know much like what was going on with Grandpa and like that whole situation. Like even just hearing it now is like first time stuff for me, or like when you're reading the intro, like a lot of that's kind of first time like hearing that type of stuff, you know? Like I've heard some of the stories of Grandpa, but like nothing like I didn't know. Because like when we moved up there, I mean,
Right.
I just saw him as Grandpa, like
Right.
they had the ranch, you know?
Right.
We'd always go over there and he was always chill.
Well, and I think it's important too to understand.
Stoned.
Right. Yeah, I think
I didn't know because
Right.
I'm that young. Like,
Well, I think it's important
Right.
to understand also, like, this is your dad's story of his experience with Grandpa. That doesn't take away anything from your grandfather, right? And that's not the intent of any of this. We're not looking for a pound of flesh or anything. It doesn't change the fact that that's still your dad's story. Also, I will maintain that while your dad is justified in his feeling of saying that's not a good enough excuse of something that was passed down, we have been all passing that stuff down for
Sure.
generations and generations, and we've never had the tools and the technology like we do now and access to, ways to really be able to get out of that. Your dad, Cameron, is a broken man.
Sure.
I, for whatever reason, have a superpower for being able to see, 8-year-old
Right.
souls inside of men. And it's something to me that is humbling because you can see the good and the bad. I think we were at a ball game one time. Remember when there's a security guard, he's probably 50 or 60 years old, and one of the ball players or all the ball players are walking by him and fist pumping him. And I could see the 8-year-old boy and that 60-year-old man being so like just geeked out that these, Major League Baseball players are giving him some knucks. That's awesome. But I can also see the other side of that, which is just the broken man inside of, the broken 8-year-old boy. Because I don't even need to know, but I know that there's fucked up stuff that happened to him that made him who he is.
Sure.
And to me, that breaks my heart.
Right.
But it also makes me extremely proud of you for the work that you do in breaking that cycle so that we're not continuing to hand that down to our kids, because there are no excuses. And so it's interesting. I talk to men all the time who say, I'm not going to pass that down to my kids. Okay, what are you doing about that?
Right.
Because you can't just have the want to not do that to your kids.
Well, like I said,
you
it's
will continue to pass it down without even knowing.
Sure. Right. And again, I think most of the time that includes abuse of some sort, right? But even if you stop the abuse, right, there's still the rest of it that goes along. And if you don't know what you're looking for and you don't know how to identify those patterns of behavior, then you can't stop them, and you just send them along without even realizing it, without even knowing it.
One of the things that I noticed for you specifically that had nothing to do with abuse, but Wiley would come ask you to do things, and you would say, later, kid, later. And I know that that's something that you had talked about with your dad, not spending time with you and not doing things with you. And I said to your dad, you're going to get to a place where you fucking wish he would come and ask you to go do stuff. And from that point forward, your dad heard me when I said that, like really received that. He said yes every time after that.
I did.
Do you remember that? Like your dad was always too busy to throw the ball or whatever. And after we had that conversation and like really had a lovely conversation around that, I don't think I've ever heard your dad say no.
was that up in Flag? Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like this kid is amazing. He looks up to you and he wants to spend time with you. Drop everything you're doing when he wants to do something. That for me is everything. It's the same. Like I used to think when we were doing KMI and Casey was raising our kids, that was the most important thing, to be able to have money, to be able to say yes when you guys needed things. My priorities have shifted so drastically in the last decade.
Right.
It's wild. It's like, what do you want? What do you want to do? What do you want to spend time with? Where do you want to go? Like all of the things. Let's do that.
Yeah. I feel like it's like hard to like notice those shifts too.
Right.
because like those, like now that you guys are mentioning it and I'm thinking about it, like it is true, because like the main like surface level stuff is like the abuse, like not passing that down,
Right.
because like you think of breaking generational like patterns like that, and like that's the big thing, you know what I mean? So like it's definitely impressive to like notice the little stuff, you know, and like change that.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of what makes me really proud of you guys coming and sitting here thinking that we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl picks, and then I bust this in on you. Gotcha. But yeah, that's a really important thing that I think is sharing that with people that are watching this or people that are listening that say, what can I be doing? What I don't want to pass down what I had. What does that look like? You know, because I think people just don't know, and it starts with a savage self-awareness of what was that you got, and how do you fix that in yourself? Because it's not just about not handing it down; you have to fix it in yourself.
You do. You know, one of the, like we said, put the abuse aside, right? And then what is there, right? To your savage self-awareness,
Chapter 2.
chapter 2, life hack playbook.
He's good. He's good.
So it's a requirement. It's a 100% requirement, all in, nothing less than you have to be as savagely self-aware as possible, go talk to somebody. It's probably a good idea to speak with somebody professionally to help you identify those patterns of behavior, right? So you might not even know what you're looking for at first. You might need somebody to kind of guide you along the way and say, hey, these are the types of behavior patterns that go along with an upbringing that's similar to what you may have encountered. So keep your eyes open for these kinds of things, and you can have those conversations and you can identify those patterns. And once you see them, you can't unsee them, right? And then, then if you're minded that way, you're going to work on them, and you're going to realize, hey, stop for a second. The way I do this, or the way I approach this situation, the way I think about these things is not good. It's not the way we're supposed to do this, and I don't want to be that way. It just comes naturally to me. And so now that I've figured that out, we can change that, and then then we can talk about maybe a different way to go about things. Let's not sell ourselves short. Let's go all the way. We don't need to diminish ourselves in any capacity or whatever. It's kind of my personal story coming out there a little bit, in that particular instance, So it's one of those things that I've noticed for me in selling myself short over the years. There's patterns that get developed about not necessarily giving things your all, because pretty soon somebody's going to come beat you down, and so you're just a lot of times you just get in these patterns of behavior waiting for the other shoe to drop. It takes away your confidence a little bit, because all of a sudden somebody comes home after they haven't been there for a while, and instead, oh, it's great to see you, no, you just get clobbered for a few days, and it changes how you do things. It just does. And so I've been happy to see you personally with your commitments to athletics. It makes me happy to see that, because I feel like that's one of those patterns that we've stopped in my generation, so that you can perform freely without some sort of something over your head that says no you can't, or no you shouldn't. Just kind of get rid of those little voices in the back of your head that shouldn't be there in the first place. So.
Well, and that's what, for me, in putting together that intro, that's what strikes me, and what guts me a little bit is Wiley doesn't even realize.
Yeah.
And that's the most beautiful part of that, is he doesn't know what had to go into getting this version of you.
Right.
He doesn't know what had to go into as you continue to work through that, because it's messy work. But it's like deciding that you're going to be the one that deals with the uncomfortable chapter so he doesn't have to,
Right.
there's nothing more powerful to me than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you said that line in the intro, I was like, damn.
I know.
I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
Why aren't we talking about the Super Bowl? It's savage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. But it's, this life is not surface level. You can try to make it that way. There's no fun in that, right? I lived a whole chunk of my life from a surface level perspective.
Right. That's not living.
That's not living. Now that I understand the deep end, you can't get me out of it, right?
Right.
I'm fascinated by patterns. I'm fascinated by understanding the things that get passed down to people and the programming that you had. If you pass down the same programming that you had, that's like giving him Windows 95 on a fucking laptop from today and expecting him to run that programming. Because he's not going to listen to what you say. He's going to listen to the behavior that you model.
Right.
And so I look at parents that do that, and it's like, oh, but I told them this. Yeah, but they're watching you. So when I talk about things like, a marriage where people don't love each other and don't even like each other anymore, and they say they're staying together for the kids. Why? Because you want your kids to settle for a mediocre, shitty fucking marriage where they don't like their partner and they don't expect to be treated with, with respect and with love. That's what you're doing.
Yep. 100%.
And you think that then they're going to move off and go to, off to college, and now all of a sudden you can break up. Stop. Fucking stop it. That's, get serious about what you're bringing to your life for both your own enjoyment and the behavior that you're modeling for your kids.
Yeah. That's true.
I feel like you guys set a very good example of that in the house.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
for anyone that doesn't know us specifically, we really dive into a lot of shit in our house. There's not anything that's off limits. There's not a question that could come out of any of my kids' mouths that would not be welcomed and appropriate. We welcome everything. We welcome all the things.
Yeah, I'm rather astonished by the conversations we have in our house and how open they are and how meaningful they are about about what's going on in everybody's world. It wasn't anything that I would have had when I was younger, right? So for me and I hate to compare things generally speaking, but when I draw that contrast, there's some benefit there, and so I don't mind drawing that because it's interesting to see how different things can be.
I feel like drawing that comparison shows you that you're doing it right. I feel like.
Hope so.
Yeah.
Doing it right or doing the most?
Doing it right.
Doing too much.
No, I think.
I feel like that's some comparisons can be healthy to show you're doing good.
Thanks for the TTM, and that was a good insert there. Look at you.
Kind of hold space.
Yeah.
No, it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun at our house, and it's like you could have where you just go home and numb out with whatever your numb of choice is, or you could say, I'm just going to get one crack at this life. Let's go all in, And for me, I'm all in.
Right.
Obviously.
Well, there's also if you might be not you, but somebody out there might be minded as such that there's an inherent responsibility in leaving a legacy that's good, right? You don't want to leave a mess, right? Don't make a mess of the world. Keep your side of the street clean. Live well. There's no reason to be destructive. Maybe some people are destructive by nature. I think I've seen that. But
I've been that.
Yeah, but you don't have to be that way, and if you don't want to be that way, then you don't want to leave that mess for your legacy. You don't want to leave that mess with your children. You might be motivated in that regard to get your shit together and evaluate what you're passing on, right? Because what you pass on to your children is what you leave in this world.
I got tired of watching people drag themselves through life half dead from exhaustion, comparison, and bullshit. So I built a system that flips the script. This book is for the ones who refuse to settle, who know deep down there's more, and who are ready to call themselves out to level up. If that's you, welcome. Let's go. You can get your copy of the Life Hack Playbook on Amazon or on the podcast website, letsgetnakedpodcast.com. I think if you're listening and you're from the the generation that Cameron and I are in, right? Where we were raised with,
Unk.
huh? Unk.
Yeah.
If you're not in tune with who you are and you're still covered in gunk and slime and whatever, know that when you look at your kids and you love them and you look at like, wow, they're really amazing, you're selling them short. You could do better.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
I hope that the kids are a motivating factor for you as you're working
Sure.
through your stuff, because it's like, I don't want to pass down that we just keep putting stuff under the rug. We talk about all the things.
We do.
There's not anything, you know, when you talk about, there was so much shame back in the generation that we were raised in, right? We didn't talk about things. So it's like your dad would come home from rehab. Your mom didn't address that. She didn't tell you where it was. There wasn't any of that. There was shame surrounding that. And then she covered it up for everybody so that the neighbors didn't know, or that the kids didn't know, or whatever that looks like. I look at my parents and the shame that was surrounding a lot of things that happened for that. Shame doesn't live where the light is, which is part of the reason that has me sitting in this chair right now. We will talk about all the things, even if I have to bamboozle you to say, come talk about who you think's going to win the Super Bowl. And then I'm like,
You didn't even say that.
I know, I'm just
Yeah.
joking. Honey, I'm just joking for the folks at home. Everyone knows that you guys knew you were coming into the buzzsaw today.
You know, another interesting aspect of it also is it's never too late.
It's never too late. Look at
right.
you with the
It's-
PSA.
Right?
Yeah.
It is. It's never too late. It's our girls were much older than Wiley, and you've spent a lot of time, breaking those generational patterns with them. Understanding that they were much older, right?
I had fucked them up for years.
Yeah, right. But it's not too late.
Not too late.
It's never too late to begin that journey. Your kids at some point they're going to be your age, and it's nice to have something to look at and say, wow, this was good. I like this. I want to go this way. Whatever. And so to be able to even provide that understanding, to provide that for children that are older is good. It's important, right? It's worth it.
Will you speak to how important it is, and just your understanding and realization about setting down that invisible weight? Because I know you also came from the same school of thought that I did with, it's fine, I'm fine, everything's fine. Cameron and I were very much, we're not the victims, doesn't matter what we came from, or we're like whatever, we're just plugging along. But the problem is, if you don't process, if you don't pull the things out, examine them, tie them up, like whatever, it's not fine. Everything is not fine. Like
Right.
You need to do that work in order to set that down. How much lighter do you feel, and what is the kind of the importance or the significance of that for you?
Yeah. It goes back to the savage self-awareness portion. There are things that that you do that just seem kind of normal, and that may not even throw a red flag. May not even register as something that you need to set down. And so I had I had a moment with Wiley one time. I don't know if Wiley remembers this or not. It was not a terrible long time ago, past 5 years maybe, and I was going through some fresh friction with my dad, and I was angry, and I was that. And they had some homicidal thoughts. Not not like serious homicidal thoughts, but just I'll kill that son of a bitch, or something like that. But I was making a joke of it, but I don't think it came off as a joke so much, and so like in Do you remember this? This was at
I don't know.
we were in at Brendan's house, your brother's house, and Wiley was sitting in the chair in the living room, and then somebody said, well, you can just hire somebody to go kill him, and I said, if you don't think I want the satisfaction of, and I did that to Wiley, and I was joking, but the look on Wiley's face said, there's some shit in here that's not joking, and I'm scared. And it scared me a little bit too, after I had a chance to reflect on it a little bit. And so,
You think I do remember that?
and so, and that was it was a moment of self-awareness for me, and it kind of made me realize more. More the anger that I carried around regarding those circumstances, and I realized I needed to talk through some things. I needed to get to a place where I could process that, and that was an important realization for me. It's just one of those kind of moments. Just the look in kids' eyes where he's like, oh shit.
Well, and you're modeling that behavior where
Right.
where it's like I can carry this anger around, and it is scary.
Yeah.
It's scary for
Yeah.
people on the outside. It's scary for your kids. It's scary for
Right.
for me next to you. I think men specifically, don't understand that all of that unprocessed stuff, whether it's from childhood or otherwise, that you drag around, it's invisible weight,
It is.
and it makes it such that something happens and it sends you over the edge because you're already running at a 7 or an 8,
Yep.
just of everything that you're carrying, right? So when you watch men lose their shit in traffic or lose their shit over some of this stuff that we call low-hanging fruit, it's because they already run at a 7 or an 8 from the shit that their fucking dads, said when they were growing up, or whatever that looks like.
All the
But-
programs running
all
in
the
the
programs.
background on the iPhone.
Right, exactly. But here's what I'll maintain. When we look around at what our men in our generation bring to the table collectively, and I'm not calling anybody out or anything specific, but just collectively, we have shootings that just happen all the fucking time. This is not a gun control problem. I mean, I'm not trying to say that isn't part of it. Please, I don't need fucking emails about that. But having men that don't know how to process their emotions and are already at a 7 and an 8, something happens in their life, whether their wife served them divorce papers or, something happens that is, terrible in their life, and they go off the fucking deep end because they don't have a clean base. When we talked in one of the mini episodes about Wiley keeping his, processing his emotion and like really feeling that so that he stays at ground zero, that's really powerful. That's not just, oh, good job, kid, for fucking processing that. That's really powerful as you go through life, because if you just kept dumping on top of that hurt and on top of that hurt,
Better have a
where
base
do you
at 0 than 7 or 8.
absolutely
Yeah.
where do you think
6
you'd
or
be?
7.
Right.
No.
So your dad's already at 6 or 7. Your dad's already at 6 or 7 when he wakes up in the morning.
That's 6, 7s. That's last year stuff.
Oh my God, excuse me.
We're
We're not allowed to say that anymore?
Well, you can say it all you want to, but it just you're not that cool anymore.
Got it. Okay.
Got it.
I didn't start that cool.
All right.
But that's a really excellent designation, because I watched this in men in this generation everywhere.
Sure.
There are so few emotionally intelligent men at my table of life. No offense to anybody, but
some-
that's like a true fucking story.
I know. So it's kind of fucked up because it again.
Please don't
so-
use names. Please don't use names.
I'm not using any names. I'm going to go back to perspective here for a minute. So this, like I said, this is kind of fucked up because you get into the flow of things and you start to lose perspective. And so sometimes I'll be around regular folks and I'll see, somebody getting all worked up over like almost nothing. They're getting crazy. And like I start laughing. Like I
That's terrible, I know.
feel like they're joking.
No, most people are still not
I
aware of things. Yeah.
And it puts me in a bad spot because somebody's just getting ready to melt down, and I'm like, you're joking, right?
Right.
And
they're not.
and they're not.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, I gotta
Put a box of my books in
figure
your
out
fucking
how to-
car and just start handing them out.
Figure out how to.
It's funny, like if people start melting down like that, and then you just like laugh or like, you know what I mean, and it just makes them even more mad.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Like
You're adding
if
to that.
you just are calm still and you're not getting worked up, it makes them get like more mad.
Yeah, well, it
Yeah.
just makes me
You know
want to
what
be
I
like,
mean?
bro, check out what EQ is, please.
Yeah.
Because people don't understand. It's like I watch all of these, big successful businessmen who have these great heads on their shoulders, but their fragile egos can't fucking handle somebody fucking talking shit about their football team, and they lose their shit. And it's like,
Yeah.
are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? You're willing to burn it all down because you don't know how to handle your fucking emotions? Get curious about that. And again, I realized that we were handed what we were passed down. It's not an excuse.
Right. No,
We,
it's
we
not
have
an
we
excuse.
have all of the tools available to us in any financial bracket that you're in. Because I won't listen to excuses of, well, I don't have the money, I don't have the this. Have you heard of YouTube? Which
Right.
is also fucking free, and you can Google. Teach me about step 1 of
Best
emotional
ways to
intelligence.
make money.
Say it again.
Best ways to make money on YouTube.
Whatever,
You
right?
do
I mean,
that too.
you can
Right.
you can find anything. I don't
It's
know if you've heard of this World Wide Web that we have, but you
Right.
can literally find anything. So yes, is it easier if you have a therapist and you have all of these other tools? Absolutely. But if you want to be better,
talk to
go to
somebody
church.
at church. You
Go-
know, there's people all over the place that are willing to sit down
Absolutely.
and give you those tools.
Absolutely. And talk through and say, find
Sure.
somebody that's a trusted somebody where you can say, here's what I'm going through. What does this look like from the outside? Or here's what I just need an ear. I need understanding. I need whatever it is. Just be real about that. Don't just keep going and numbing with whatever your numb of choice is. That is not quality of life. Like, how much do you feel like your life has improved just over the last couple of years of you getting really savagely self-aware about things and finally listening to me? How long ago did you start listening to me? Because what are we, 24 years
yeah,
in?
yeah. So we should probably try to qualify or quantify that whole statement in some regard.
Let's. Can't wait to see where this goes.
Yeah, I bet you.
Boring the shit out of your kid.
Yeah, I bet so. Panama Red. Yeah, I'm not going to waste his time on that.
Right. But it's wild. And you know that it is. It's a big difference.
It's a big difference. So I'll I get to live every day what most of you can experience by life hack playbook purchase.
You see, he's so good at plugging it. It's because half of that's his,
Right.
Half of that debt's his,
So, yeah. It's almost immeasurable, when you're able to commit to this is the way it should be instead of being stuck in the previous patterns.
It's a different life.
It is.
It's a different life. And I've seen that in myself. I've watched that happen in you. I've watched that happen in every single person in our tribe that has gone all in on them to figure themselves out and to figure out what they're bringing to the table for stuff. Because we're not supposed to put our head in the sand and just what we get is what we get. It's like,
Right.
nah, boss. Like,
Yeah, that's not living.
that's not living.
Yep.
Life is too good and there's too much great stuff out there to just keep doing the same mediocre day on Groundhog's Day repeat.
Yeah, that's a true story.
What do you know about emotional intelligence in your friend group? Please tell me the younger generation is not fucked.
I don't know. Like I definitely discussed that more with you and Dad and like our family than like my friends.
Sure.
What do you mean 18-year-old boys are not hanging out talking about EQ?
Well,
Weird.
guys my age aren't doing that either.
Right.
Don't.
No, it's definitely something I learned from you guys.
Right.
I don't like some of my friends like will have like deeper conversations, but not really about like
Right.
like emotional intelligence or
Right.
Do guys your age show emotion?
Other than anger.
Yeah, other than anger. Let me rephrase that.
Like in what way?
In any way.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
Okay. I like
Like
that.
happiness, like joy.
But I also mean all of the emotions. There's a full spectrum of them.
No, I know, but I feel like my friends are good about expressing emotion. I feel like
Good.
but
How about your friends, Cameron?
Yeah, I'm gonna say not so much.
Yeah.
You know, we're all the Gen Xers.
Yeah.
You know, we're those guys. You know, rub some dirt on it and get back in the game. You know,
Those guys are fucking us to death. Just if you're a Gen X male listening out there, you're fucking us to death as a society.
Yes, and yeah, but
Yes and yes.
yes, but we're building society at the same time. So you got to take the good with the bad. You know, we're
No excuses.
we're also the most capable people around as well. So you got to
Yeah, as long as nobody bumps into any of your triggers, we're all set.
yeah. Well, you know, that's on each individual
listen,
to clean themselves up.
I absolutely adore Gen X men. I think you guys are the best. I really do. I think you guys are the best.
Right.
But I also think I love it. Wiley, you and I
I
both.
don't know what my gen is called, but we're the best.
You don't know what your Gen is called?
Gen Z, right?
Yeah.
Michael, what is the age of 18? What is that generation? Do you know? Gen Z.
Gen Z.
Okay.
Yeah, we're the best.
Brittany's somewhere in between there.
Boomer.
No,
that's old.
she's
That's
older.
She's Y. Well, who's the millennials then?
I think Brittany's
Oh.
I don't know. 90s is
Yeah,
millennials? Yeah,
that's
so
better
Brittany's a
than me.
millennial.
Millennial.
Yeah.
That's.
Or she's right on the cusp or whatever.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's pretty rough, but I hope that we've gotten to a place where at least people understand that there's something there, whether they've decided to dig into it or not, because I'm riding that agenda pretty fucking hard with our generation of men of, hey, you don't have to do this. You don't have to bleed quietly in the dark.
Well,
we don't have to do that anymore.
So silver lining here. I'm going to go back to the opportunity cost of thought for a second, just for a comparison. So it's easy, right? It's easy to stop thinking a thought and think something else, right? You can just switch and change and say stop it and go a different direction, right? If your life is a grind, there's problems, right? Don't think that that's just the way it's supposed to be, or that's the way it is for me, or that's the way it is for, you know, my group of people, or whatever it is. You can't make these blanket statements about, oh, it's tough, oh, it's rough, oh, it's supposed to be hard, it's not. And if it is, you've got problems and you need to figure out what they are, right? Like that's the good news here. It's not like you have to go on some sort of, you know, you don't have to go through all of the things that Anne's gone through in order to, you know, condense into, you know, the life hack playbook here, you know. You don't have to go on that big journey, right? Anne has done that, and she shares that with you in her book. And you don't have to do that. You can just do a quick evaluation of what you have going on in your life. And if you feel like it's hard, then you've got some problems that you need to figure out what they are. It's just that simple, right?
Go sit down with a pen and paper and just write some shit out. Like what's working,
you know,
what's not.
But it gets even easier than that. You may not even know how to do that. You may not even know what to write down. You may not know how to identify things. There's people out there that can help you with that. Your friends can help you with that. You can just go to anybody that's going to be honest with you. Find whoever that is. It doesn't matter, and say, shit's just harder than it's supposed to be, I think, you know? And just start there. And just start there. It's just that simple. You know, there's something there, right? It should be easy. It should be enjoyable. You should be having a good time with what time on this earth that you've been granted, and you should just go do that. And if you're not there, then there's a problem. Go figure out what the problem is with whatever means are available to you at that point. But it's just that simple, right? So conceptually, super simple. You know, I get it. When it comes to action, it's a little bit more difficult, but you know, starts with simply just changing a thought. Change a thought. Change your world.
Look at this guy making bumper stickers. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah.
Do you have questions? What is a question that comes up for you when we're doing all this conversation?
About this topic?
About anything.
He's like, Dad, how come you didn't leave the house when you were 10?
You know, it's wild to me because as I've gone over my childhood and done an inventory for things, I look at that and think, I'm going to try not to get emotional about this. When you talk about the way that you grow up, and I put Wiley in that age bracket, or I look at the things that happened to me and I put Emily there, or put Brittany there, or put one of our nieces there, it guts me. It guts
100%.
me because it's like, oh, we were tough and we could get through that. And then you look at it and it's like, I was 10. I was 8. I was whatever age, right? It's not cool. It's not cool. And for any of the, our generation Gen X out there that think it's fine, everything's fine, go ahead and just start pulling that shit out. Let it come up. Stop putting stuff on top of it. Where it's like, where do we start? That's always going to be my recommendation. Stop putting stuff on top of it with the low-hanging fruit, the things with the traffic and the complaining about the weather and the things that are easy that you can control.
Yep.
And then with that capacity that you're clearing up, just allow stuff to come up.
Yep.
And think it through. Think it all the way through. Hold space for that version of you that should have never had to be that strong. The version of you that should have never had to not have your dad around for weeks at a time. The version of you that should have never had to get your ass kicked or see the things that you saw. Because there's an innocence of a child that I look back at little pictures of Wiley and I think, that's Cameron dealing with unspeakable shit.
Yep.
That's me dealing with shit that should have never been a thing. And how important and savage that is to say, we're going to stop this here. Because it isn't too late. And even though maybe you already have past patterns down to your children if they're older or whatever, you can still fix that. The honor of my life is helping the girls heal from fucking trauma that I caused. That is not easy. Right. That is literally gut-wrenching work to do. Because obviously I didn't do it intentionally. I have adored my children from day one. I had no idea what I was passing down. But you look at that and it's like, holy shit, right? You start doing there's some collateral damage in there that is hard to process. So to be willing to take accountability for your piece of that and stand naked in front of somebody and say, I'm sorry, like that was not my intent to do that. That's wild,
That's the hardest part right there.
It is the hardest part.
Admitting that you're wrong.
It is.
That's harder than going back and trying to fix it.
It is.
Like
because
when dad was saying it, like grandpa was like, oh, thinking he was a great job as a dad.
Yeah.
The hardest part is like just admitting that, you messed up,
Right. Standing there and taking accountability with somebody, and you're absolutely right. But the thing that I think that a lot of people miss, there's so much fucking power in taking accountability, in not blaming it on anything, on not anything. It's, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I passed that down. I'm sorry. Whether you realized it, whether you didn't realize it, with whatever that goes into that, standing there and taking accountability for it, sky's the limit after that.
BCD.
Would you please explain that to our listeners? Because I love that so much. And tell everybody where it came from, too, because I think it's awesome.
All right. It comes from my football team and our head coach. Yeah. But it started as no BCD. It's like one of our just core things we say. I mean, it's no blame, no complain, no defend. Just basically just be accountable for what you've done.
Yeah. Thank you, Coach Rod.
Yep. Like whatever happened, there's nothing you can change. Just take accountability for it and
move
work
on
with what you got.
Yeah.
I saw one thing the other day. It was like a good quote. It was like, you can't uncrack a cracked egg. So it was like if whatever circumstances have happened to you in life, right? If your egg is cracked, you can't put the shell back together. So just cook with what you got.
Yeah.
Make some good scrambled eggs or something.
Yeah, I like it.
You know what I mean?
I like it.
Yep.
Watching Wiley develop is the most fun. Wiley has always been just save my bacon all the way through. And I watch as he continues to do it every single day, and he has no idea he's even doing it. Just by him existing, it's so much fun to watch him for the things that make an impact with him and the impact that he has on other people. Wiley is definitely a positive force to be reckoned with, and I watch how that presents itself in his journey as he goes along with staff. And just mad respect for everybody that has an influence on you, regardless of how difficult it is. 'Cause sometimes it's everything from.
Well, I'm gonna hit on something else while we're here right now, because Wiley was indicating earlier that this was the first time he's heard some of my personal story and some of my personal motivation or whatever. So I'll say that there's probably some of that got on you. You know, you probably don't know it yet. You know, it'll come up at some point. There's probably some of that got on you. And when it does, you know, you can come right here and you can motherfuck me all you want to, and I'll take it, you know, and then I'll help you fix it, you know. But that service is available whenever whenever you find that it's appropriate.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Yeah. Appreciate you, Big Dog.
good. I hope so.
You know, I don't think that there's anything bigger than that.
Yep.
To me, I don't think there's anything bigger than that.
Well, you know, what else can you do, right? It just goes right back to the cracked egg story. He was telling you can't uncrack it. You know, I cracked you, you know, and I'm not gonna help you with the duct tape, but I'll help you with the omelet.
Yep.
You know, so
Tell me what seasonings to put on it.
yeah, you know that I can help you with. You know, all my egg was cracked too. So yeah, that's how that. I think that's how that's going to go. So
We end with a quick understanding about base layer defensiveness in men specifically, and what you would suggest as far as maybe somebody who's listening and doesn't know how to tackle that, or where to even start with that. So while you're thinking about that, I'm going to tell a quick story for those that are listening. So I don't know why I would say it to those that aren't listening. So there's something I say as I'm doing this podcast, and I'm like, no shit. For our listeners, like not for anyone that's in the studio, like it's just it's weird. I'm working on some stuff, but I describe defensiveness as a blanket trigger for everything. So if you're defensive in general in nature, you're no fun to be around, just FYI. And it's important to really dig into that and figure out what that's all about. And Cameron and I had a come to Jesus a couple of years ago where I just said, I can't do this anymore. I'm exhausted from trying to work through your base layer of defensiveness all the fucking time. So can you please dive into that? I more than planted seeds on that one. That was one that I say I clubbed you over the head and fucking drug you back to the cave. So how did you start getting curious about that with yourself, or how would you encourage people? Because I get that question from guys quite a bit of, I don't know where to start, right? I don't want to pass this shit down. I don't want to be reactive. I don't want to run at a 7 or an 8 or a 6, 7, whatever.
Stop
it.
It was cheating for me because of you.
Get yourself an ant. It'll be real easy.
Just get yourself an ant. And or anyone who cares about you enough to point out when you're being defensive, right? That's when it starts, right? You have to notice those things because, again, you'll have behavior patterns that you're engaged in that are subconscious, right? You don't realize it, and then when somebody brings it to your attention, you just feel like you're being normal, and you're not, and then your reaction is to be defensive about it, right? Because you didn't do it on purpose, right? I mean, that's kind of the thing. There's these actions, and typically actions are intentional, right? And so when somebody accuses you of something or brings something to your attention, it's natural to become defensive about that, right? But you have a tendency because of, generational, bullshit and trauma and whatever, to act subconsciously. And it's important to have somebody around you, anyone around you that's willing to be honest with you enough to be able to point those things out, right? So then you can, once you start seeing these circumstances or these examples of when you're acting a certain way, especially when you didn't intend to be that way, it really opens your mind to seeing a fuller picture of that. And once you have the full picture of it, then it's easy. Then you can take steps to corrective measures, at that point. But you can't do it unless you have a full picture. And it takes somebody else, because I'm not going to say it's impossible. Certainly it was impossible for me. It's probably nearly impossible for everybody else, but you just can't do it without somebody to mirror your actions and be able to give you appropriate feedback as far as that goes.
Yeah, and if you don't have people at your table of life that are checking you, Change that.
Yeah.
Unchecked is not.
Find a new table.
Find a new
Yeah.
fucking table.
Yeah.
Because unchecked is not a good look on anybody.
It's
We've
not-
already determined that full force. Full
Unchecked.
stop.
Unchecked equals destruction 100% of the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's our time for today. Thank you, guys. Who do you think's going to win the Super Bowl? Do we even know who's going? I don't even fucking know.
Well, we don't know who's going
Okay,
yet.
well,
but
who do you think's going to
I
win?
got probably the Patriots, I think.
Oh, Patriots are doing it again?
Kids stole my answer. I'm going to take the Sea Chickens.
Okay.
I think it'll be them too. In the
I'm going to go with the
Super Bowl.
Broncos.
All right.
I like it.
Okay. Are they even in the running?
Oh, they're the 1 seed.
Yes.
Well, this won't air until after the Super Bowl, so it's a.
Oh, the Broncos are going to win. That's my
yeah.
prediction. Hundo on it?
Patriots
$1.
beat the Seahawks
$1.
in the Super Bowl.
All right.
Broncos. I'm going to say Broncos are going to win. I'm putting my dollar on that.
All right. I'll throw in a buck on that too.
On which one?
Sea Chickens.
Patriots.
Got it. Okay.
right,
You've heard it here. If you have questions, suggestions, or think you have a story to add and want to be on the podcast, send us an email or DM us. Our email address is ladies@letsgetnakedpodcast.com. And then do all the things to support the pod. Review, share, rate, and review. That's our time. We'll catch you next time. That's a wrap.